Welcome to the Rochester, New Hampshire History Podcast, a monthly show that will shine a light on a piece of history that has been all but forgotten.
In 1877, Rutherford B. Hayes is sworn in as the 19th President of the United States. Thomas Edison invents the phonograph, a machine that can record sound. Emil Berliner invents the microphone. Henry Flipper becomes the first African American to graduate from the United States Military Academy. Also in 1877, a map was made of Rochester, made in the fashion of a bird's eye perspective. One can see changes in the landscape, architecture, roads, all in a three-dimensional view. Let's dive in and see how amazing this map is. Portland Street, which today extends from East Rochester all the way to the downtown. It was a bit different in 1877. Back then, Portland Street turned into Railroad Avenue close to downtown. This makes sense since there are a lot of railroads converging in this area. Rochester's railroad depots were the largest railroad centers in eastern New Hampshire.
Currently, City Hall is located on Wakefield Street. Back then, Rochester was still a town, and not a city. The town hall was located on the corner of South Main and Wentworth Street.
School Street School was already there in 1877. What is interesting, there is a body of water situated behind the school that is not there anymore.
The Wallace shoe factories in 1877 were enormous and occupied 5 acres of land, employing around 700 people. Looking at the map, you can see how much land the factories and tannery took up. It would become the city's largest employer. Today, the Walgreens pharmacy sits on this spot.
At the Rochester Common, you can see the Civil War monument standing in 1877. No other structures are visible, including the bandstand, which will be built 37 years later in 1914. There was a Pound Street near the Commons in 1877. The origin of the street name was that towns were required to maintain a structure to pen stray livestock. Rochester's Animal Pound was located near the Commons on Pound Street.
Here we have the intersection of Liberty and South Main Streets. The Congregational Church still resides in the same place. Currently, the public library is next to the church. In 1877, this was not the case. The Main Street School was situated next to the church. The school was built in 1856 and was used as an elementary school as well as a high school.
Here is the Cocheco River and North Main Street. Today, a beautiful stone bridge spans the river. In 1877, there was a wooden bridge spanning the river. Also, this is interesting. You can see a small bridge extending to an island. This smaller bridge does not exist today.
Here is Maple Street and the Maple Street School in 1877. Back then, there were not a lot of houses on Maple Street.
There are a lot of items to look at in this part of the map. Some street names have changed. What we call South Main Street was called Market Street in 1877. One can also see the Norway Pines Woolen Mills. They were situated on the Cocheco River. The mills were large and occupied a lot of land. In the 1870s, these mills produced over 1 million yards of textiles annually.
Old Rochester Cemetery, which is currently located behind the U-Haul company and hard to see from the road. And in 1877, this cemetery was easily accessible and quite visible from the road.
Some of the streets in 1877 were a bit different. Some of them became dead ends. Like look at Winter Street. Back then, this street did not go anywhere and just stopped. And let's look at Washington Street. Unlike today, this road is not heavily populated, nor are there many roads intersecting with it.
Back then, Hanson Street was a private street named for Dominicus Hanson. The name on the map is Hanson's Street, denoting that Dominicus Hanson owned the street.
Not all things change, though. The large brick building on the corner of South Main and Academy Street is still standing. In the 1870s, this building was the Morrill grocery store.
This ends the podcast. If you have any questions or comments, please email bobgriffinpodcast@gmail.com and come back next month for another episode of Rochester, New Hampshire History.